Hello YouTube, Will from Ninja here, bringing you another video, this time focusing purely on Dungeons and Dragons introduction. It will be mainly 5th edition, because that's the only one I know of, and there is debate about which edition is better, 3rd edition, 3.5, 3rd edition, or 5th, or even the spin-off, if I'm remembering correctly, called Pathfinder. Now, there's no online method, I believe, to buy the Dungeon Master's Guide or the Player Handbook or any of the other books. So sadly, you will have to either order a hardback copy from Wizards, Amazon, or go to your local game store. When I say game store, I don't mean like GameStop or whatever. It's a game store as in a hobby shop. Places where you might find Warhammer 40k, Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, tabletop games in general. Now, I got my hands on a PDF. I think I got from what's it called? It's the DM's Guild, which is a great site. I think it's ran by Wizards. I'm not sure, but you can pay. Sorry, hold on, I have something wrong with my allergies. You can pay on that site, and you'll get PDFs of things. Like some people upload their own custom classes and whatever, and you can people pay and whatnot. I remember hearing about it with Wizards, but okay. Anyway, we're going to be getting into the general design of a character sheet, which I think you can get digitally from Wizards themselves off their website. So that is handy. It's nice that, for those that don't want to have to keep rescanning their hardback book and printing out another page, but there are also apps. Like I personally have an app on my phone that allows me to run a 5th edition character, and it updates with all the additional races, and it auto fills out the features of the class and the races. So the only thing it doesn't do is personality traits and other stuff, which sadly you sort of do need, so it's best to reference the PHP. Now again, I'm just going to point out that the reason for the angle is because I do not have a webcam, and I'm not completely sure how to only record voice on my computer. With my mic, I am not tech savvy, so just as much as I can do by using my phone, which I will then upload with the YouTube app. Now, I have my Player's Handbook thing open, and it looks like this. Hold on, let me just pick this up. Hopefully it will rotate. Okay, sorry this. Wow, so I can't rotate my phone when using a recording. That is going to make this a lot more difficult. I have, luckily, in one of my bags, a different PDF. It's still 5th edition. Sorry, give me a sec. Here we go. This is for my Tiefling Wizard. Okay, yeah, per quality, there we go. And with that. So, yeah, again, I'm afraid, but I'm sorry about this, because again, I was expecting to be able to rotate. God damn it. I'm so sorry about this. Yeah, that button's not doing anything. Okay. Anyway, fine. Might as well just go into talking about the classes and the races, since I can't actually show you. Ugh. I'll probably learn how to do that myself, and then I'll probably try, once I do figure out how to record only audio and maybe record what's happening on my screen, I can then, how should I put it, record just an audio of filling out a sheet, because at the moment it seems like I can't, unless I was to do a separate video where I use the back camera rather than the front. But anyway, okay, so I'm just going to talk about the classes then. Alright, Now, some of the key features of D&D is, now I should emphasize this, every game, every table that you sit at will be different. Some DMs are a bit more relaxed when it comes to homebrew, which is a term given to homemade classes and races. Now, if you if you're new to D&D, I would not recommend you try and homebrew anything yet. And if before you even start planning, check with your DM, because regardless of what you read in the player's handbook, or the Dungeon Master's book, or the Monster Manual, which technically, unless you're planning on DMing, or you should not be reading, because again, those books are meant for the DM only. Or even if you get a sneak peek at a module or an adventure designed and released by Wizards, such as the starter book, which I ran through about 10 times, is fun, and it's been different every time because of different players and characters, blah blah blah. But that the starter one is called Lost Mine of Phandelver. Great adventure. I recommend you pick up a box. It comes with some pre-generated characters. It comes up with it gives you a starter rule book, and then also the adventure Lost Mine, which will run you from level 1 to level 5. Anyway, some of the one thing you need to also there's the as I was saying, regardless of what you read in the adventure books, the DMG, the Monster Manual, or any of the other books, the DM has the final say. Now, that doesn't mean you should not question him, but the general etiquette is, after this, don't question the DM during the session. Like, for example, if you have an issue with a particular ruling, for example, say if the normal damage rules, which I think is, for if you fall 30 feet, you're supposed to take 2d6 damage. Instead of that, the DM has it, okay, you take 1d10 damage. Don't question them right there and then. Roll the d10, take the damage, and then at the end of the session or some other point in between the sessions, message him on Facebook or however you contact your DM, and then bring it up. Don't delay the group's fun by getting into a semi-argument. It's no fun. And it's actually even says it in the Dungeon Master's Guide, the DM has final say. And he can edit the world as much as he fits, because the only world that is set is those set in the Adventurers League, which is places that Wizards allow shops to host events. The Adventurers League is an event thing where they allow they allow players to come in and play through a thing, and that takes place on the Sword Coast, the most famous of locations in D&D. It's about similar to Neverwinter and Baldur's Gate, and that is only a small part of the continent of Faerun. So there is no world map for 5th edition yet. We may get one. I'm hoping to get one, because right now, for a game that I'm planning on setting up for some friends of mine, we'll be playing through the Elder Scrolls map with Sword Coast squashed into Cyrodiil. So I'm hoping that eventually they'll release a world map, but at the moment we don't have one. We have a larger map of the Sword Coast thanks to the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide, which is also available to buy, and it's a handy thing for new players as well as DMs. But yeah, don't question your DM at the table. Question him after, and try and be polite, because the DM is taking the time, and he's the one that has to do all the stuff involving NPCs, quest plots, custom items, and all that stuff. And the players are important as well, because you're the one. The DM can't have fun unless he has players. But at the same time, the DM is the one that's putting most of the time and effort into it. So you have to have a bit of respect, both ways. So don't question your DM. Again, it's just proper roleplay. It's just proper tabletop etiquette. Don't question the DM at the table. Next, the PHP does have a step-by-step process of creating characters. They recommend you choose a race first and then a class. That is handy if you're the type of person that there's two terms that this process can go with, and that is minimaxing and munchkin. Now, I agree with those type of terms for the players, but at the same time, if you're playing a dungeon delve adventure, it's okay because you're going into this dungeon to survive and kick ass. So you want the most epic stats as you want. I personally like to think of a theme, and then I try and create characters suiting that theme. But the PHP suggests picking a race first, and the races you have to pick from are. Okay, it doesn't actually. Wow, it actually does not list the races in that part. But anyway, okay, we'll get to that when it gets there. The next step then is to pick a class. Now, some classes determine your starter equipment, your starting abilities, and also what you're trained in to do. So when you pick your class, try and create a background for your character that suits that class. For example, my wizard, he seeks all magical knowledge. So I picked wizard because that's, in terms of all the magic users, wizards get their power and their magical power from studying, whereas sorcerers get their power from their heritage. They're born with this power. And warlocks get their power from some great power, like a demon or a fae, or some old god that no longer gets worshipped. And then the same goes for the clerics, but except they're more of gods rather than demons and whatnot. And then paladins get their power from their dedication to their oaths. As opposed to what they used to be, paladins used to be. Oh no, sorry, I'm getting off topic. Sorry, I don't plan out these things. I like to keep them, natural. I don't rehearse or anything. So I'm sorry if I end up getting sidetracked. I will try and stay on point. But anyway, next you choose your class. I will mention though, some classes are easier to play than others. So depending on how confident you are, you may want to go with a class that's a bit easier. Then there's ability scores. Now, ability scores determine your general stuff, like your attributes. I don't know why they call it abilities, but I refer to them as attributes. There's the classic strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. There's 6 in total, and some races get different modifiers to different ones. For example, elves are more dexterous, whereas dragonborns are a lot tougher and stronger. So keep that in mind when you're also playing a character. Now, I personally always go for the tiefling regardless of my class, just because I like the idea, and I'll explain them in depth in a different video. Okay, I'll probably do a video. I'm actually going to aim to do a video on each of the different races, and then a more in-depth video on each of the different classes. But okay, now your ability scores have different things. There's also skills, and your attributes or ability scores in terms of the PHP determine the benefit of those skills. For example, acrobatics is a dex skill. So the higher your dex, the higher your passive dexterity is, unless you're trained in it, which is what we call proficiency. Your class and sometimes your background will give you proficiency in different things. For example, you may have high wisdom, but not high. You might not be proficient in looking around using your perception, so you won't get a modifier. Your modifier changes as you level up to a maximum of 6. And then there's also ability score modifiers. For example, if you have, like I said with acrobatics, if you have a dex of 14 to 15, you get +2 to all your dex abilities. But if you're proficient with it at level 1, that can make the difference between your acrobatics being +2 to whatever you roll when you roll a d20 to a +4. You know what I mean? So you pick your class, and then and also you can assign your attributes any way you want. There's the standard array, or you can roll for them. The standard array is 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. So now they're not your final scores, because as I said, races get bonuses to different attributes. For example, if you put 15 in your dexterity and then you pick the race, an elf race, you'll get +2 to your dex. So that 15 could become 17, and then instead of getting +2, you get +3. So, now some creatures will have higher than player attributes. For example, dragons. They can potentially, if a creature has 30 points in their 30 strength, that's +10. So players at most can get up to 20, unless they're using magical objects, like a famous one, Gauntlets of Ogre Strength, which raises your dex to automatically 18. So sadly, that's all they do. Trying to think of one that gives you plus whatever. I can't think one off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but anyway, that's about it for attributes. So you get to rearrange them as much as you want. Like for example, wizards rely on intelligence, so they would put their 15 at intelligence. There's a term called the dump stat, and that is what you would normally assign to A. Now the dump stat is your attribute that your class does not rely on. For example, wizards don't need strength. Like, we have no need for it. So strength is where would be normally our dump stat. I would recommend that you never put constitution. At the lowest, constitution should go to 10 at the lowest. So unless you're building a tank. If you're building a tank, put it as high as you can. But yeah, never put constitution at A, because that will lower your maximum health starting off, and you don't want that. Like, why would you want that? So at most put it to 10, because that way it stays, it doesn't get a plus, but it doesn't get a minus. Whereas if you put a stat to A, you'll get -1. So yeah. Okay, there's also a point cost. I don't use them, and I'm not particularly knowledgeable of it. All I know is you get a certain amount of points to spend on your attributes, and then you put them into the different attributes. Traditional to, I think, some video games, where you're like, okay, Fallout 4. Like Fallout 4 starts you off with a certain amount of attribute points, and you just raise your strength or whatever in your special. It's like that. Okay, and then the next step in the player handbook is then choosing your equipment. Some classes, there's 2 rules when it comes to starting your game. There's starting wealth, and then there's starting equipment. If you pick starting wealth, you do not get your starting equipment, but instead you get to roll for money. So it potentially means you get the potential to buy items that you would more prefer. Like for example, I prefer using swords, but a cleric I don't think gets the option to get a sword. So if I was playing a cleric, if I wanted a sword and a shield, I would probably take starting wealth rather than the starting equipment. So that way I can buy a sword and a shield and then whatever armor I would prefer. So yeah. There's 20... There's... The level system is a bit of a disappointment for me, because again, when I heard about D&D, there was always these comments from characters on TV saying, oh, I'm a level 100 and something cleric or whatever, or level beyond 20, but sadly the max character level is 20, and then your class level is individual classes, but you can only level up 20 times. So within those 20 levels, you can be like a wizard 10 and a warrior 10, or you can be any type of combination. I personally would allow players. Again, actually no. My recommendation and my method of DMing aside, right now we're focusing on the DMG. Sorry, the basics. So yeah, there's 20 levels, and the PHP covers your proficiency bonus at each level. From level 1 to 4, you get +2 to whatever you're proficient in. Then from level 5 to 10, you get +4. Sorry, you get +3 to level 8. And then for 9 and 10, you get +4. Oh wow, it's actually all over. For a second there, I thought that was color coded, but it is not. I don't know why they have on some section green and then yellow and then green and then yellow. If it's not changing, okay, it's not separating anything. Now, reading the PHP, you will get a bit confused by the leveling system, because it goes up from 300 to 900, then 2,700 to 6,500, and then from 6,500 it goes to 4,000. Now, some people will like to say it's doubling it, but I don't know. I don't see any type of pattern. So, now again, I'm shit at maths, so maybe I'm missing the pattern. But okay. Now, again, I wish my phone would allow me to rotate the camera so I could show you on my screen. Because I actually opened up a digital character sheet for you to look at. But, also we're getting to, wow, 21 minutes already. Shit, I am sorry if I've been rambling. Okay. Alright, I'll go into just the gist of the races and the classes instead of... Now again, I do plan to do an in-depth video for each individual thing on my interpretation of the thing. For example, some people would argue that paladins are still the religious warrior, even though when I read the PHP they say they're warriors of justice and fighting evil. That to me does not strike me as a religious knight anymore. Like, no, don't get me wrong, like in early editions, from what I've read and heard, they were definitely religious warriors. Like they had to take a god, but now they don't. Now they just have to take an oath, and they have to live their life by that oath, and their dedication to that is their power. Similar to Green Lanterns from DC Comics, I think. I'm not a big fan of DC. At most, I like Batman. I'm more of a Marvel person. But anyway, that is my interpretation of paladins in 5th edition. So right now, let's get into the races. There's, as I mentioned, races have ability score modifiers. They also have different age limits, because D&D is a game where you play out that character, and sometimes the DM may have you, in between the books, or depending on what he's doing, they may have you skip a few months or even possibly a year, like a time skip between seasons of a show. So there is that, and then also certain creatures are valued at different sizes. They each have different speed modifiers, and they also have their own languages. Now, some have sub-races. Keep that in mind. First, we have dwarves. Handy race, great for building pretty much a tank. They're one of the few races that also get weapon proficiencies based on their race and not their class. So playing an elf or a dwarf wizard is pretty handy, and you'll see why when it comes to my more in-depth videos. Then you have I think there's some sub-races. There's definitely some in Volo's Guide and the Sword Coast Adventurers guidebook. So you may want to take a look at them as well if you have access to them, or if you're thinking of buying them. Then we have the elves. Great. They're actually pretty great nearly in a broad sense, like their plus to dex and then their weapon training that they get, like the dwarves, it allows them to play into different classes. So there's them, and they have also there's multiple sub races for them. So there's that. So when you if you're thinking of playing an elf, there's an elf for you out there. You have halflings. Anyone familiar with Lord of the Rings certainly knows about halflings. Pretty fun. I know I have a friend who plays a halfling rogue. No, sorry, halfling bard, and the stories he tells me about her are just hilarious. So take a look at them. Then you have humans. I know a few people that like playing humans, but most of the people that I know actually don't like playing human, and that is just because they play D&D to have a fantasy game, and playing human sort of breaks. They rather play something that they can't play. So, oh. And I have one friend who loves playing human, and that's because the humans are they can literally fit into any class. And again, I'll get into that in a later time. Then you have the Dragonborn. Now, don't think Dragonborn from Skyrim. These Dragonborns, their origins are a little bit... It's unknown. Even to the Dragonborns themselves, their origin of their race is unknown. They just appeared. And again, they're pretty interesting. Again, I'll go more into in-depth as I can, and there's even a sub-race between the Dragonborns. You then have gnomes. I don't know anyone who plays gnome, but there seems to be what they're called. Sub-races then, but again, I'll go in-depth and I'll read them a day in advance so I know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I never really seen one. Then there's the half-elf, a mix of human and elf. And then there's the half-orc, orc and human, which sort of puzzles me. That's one thing I sort of wish Wizards would do, would be, why is it... Also, orcs, until Volo's Guide, was actually not a player race. They have to be your enemies for a long bit. So the only way you could play an orc or anything close to an orc was to play a half-orc. But then Wizards were like, you know what? We're releasing Volo's Guide. Here's a bunch of races that are normally your enemy that you can now play as, such as goblins, kobolds, something called Young T, which is like a snake person, and orcs. So if you're interested in playing orc, play an orc. Half orcs can lead into that bit of a dark character origin, because again, traditionally in D&D, orcs are raiders and bandits. So to have a half human, half orc, it may not be it may be a bit iffy. But anyway, let's move on. Then there's my favorite race, the Tiefling. I don't know why, but they're fun. They're the demonic race. Demonic-ish. Very fun to play as. The Sword Coast Adventurers League really made them more fun because they can have wings. And then also Wizards have been doing stuff with the Unearthed Arcanas, where they have feet, which I'll get into later. Where they even introduce that you can be more defining about the origin of your heritage. Like, are you a part bone demon, where that allows you to spout bones and all that. Very cool. The Unearthed Arcanas can be found on the Wizards website. Little bit of word of warning, they're play testing, so they may not be permanent. So you might not find them in a book or in 6th edition even. So, they're still fun to have, and you can and they're free to download as a PDF. So I personally been collecting them, and I use every single one of them, except for the revised ones, which came out after some testing, because things have changed about them. Now we get into the classes. Okay, that is the races. There's more technically in Volo's Guide, but I might do a separate video on them. This is going to be focused on the stuff that you learn from the player's handbook. All right. Now there's one. Pardon me. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 classes. There's the Barbarian. Those familiar with Conan the Barbarian know what I'm talking about. There's Bards. A Bard is... I'm actually just going to read their descriptions. How about that? And then when I go into in-depth, I'll talk about more of them. I don't want... Again, since I plan to have those videos where I go with more in-depth, I want to save, some stuff for them, for those videos. Like, I don't want to go overly in-depth right now. A bard, an inspired magician whose power echoes the music of creation. I love some of the descriptions they give to these classes. They're really fun. A cleric, a priestly champion who wields divine magic in service of a higher power. Clerics have also gone through a change over the past editions. See, now I would think clerics can be the holy knights, because some of the proficiencies when it comes to clerics do allow them to have access to heavy armor, and they also have the shields and the maces and all that. Like, so again, my opinion, there are some people who will say paladins are still the holy knights. I'm just going based on the player's handbook's description. Okay. You can comment in the discussion video below. It's just that there is no wrong or right, because as I said, DMs can change stuff. It's just that in my games, I roll them as that. But I know players who roll them in their thing that paladins are really holy knights, and their oaths are, and they have to have a deity. Like, they have to have a god or goddess that they worship. So, okay, just saying. Don't bite my head off. Druid. A priest of the old faith, wielding powers of nature, moonlight and plant growth, fire and lightning, and adapting animal forms. It's pretty fun to play a druid. I haven't played them, but I've seen them being played by friends at my table. Very fun. Then you have the fighter, a master of martial combat, skilled in a variety of weapons and armor. There's the monk, who's all about kung fu shit, like, and all that. Very fun. I have a friend who made lots of builds on different types of monks. Then you have the paladin, who now the description here sort of contradicts the description that's on the page where it talks about the paladin. See, in this description, the one sentence description they give him is a holy warrior bound to a sacred oath. But then in the later section where it says paladin, and then it's multiple pages about the paladin, it doesn't mention anything about a holy mission or whatever. There's hardly any mention of religion. It mostly just talks about their oath to uphold justice and fight evil. So again, it's a bit... I take that description because, again, it's part of the section that is dedicated to the paladin. And then you have the ranger, a warrior who uses martial prowess and nature magic to combat threats on the edges of civilization. Such example would be Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, because again, he was a ranger, and he actually had rangers in D&D can play exactly like Aragorn, like two-handed sword with a bow type of skills, like, you have the rogue, which has the thief archetype, and the assassin. They're basically the character that you want in your party to, be picking everything, like, and to also scout up ahead, as well as the ranger. The ranger can also be a scout, just due to the fact that they rely on wisdom a lot for their magic, I think. So the wisdom will not generally be high up, as well as dex, unless they're going the Aragorn approach, which means they may prioritize strength over dexterity. Next, you have this... the description of rogue. A scoundrel who I love how they just say scoundrel straight off the bat, because, like, every archetype for the rogue, it does not paint them in a pretty picture. There's the assassin, the thief, the swashbuckler, and then there's the arcane thief. Oh no, sorry, arcane trickster. Sorry, my mistake, but still trickster. Not a pretty picture. So yeah, a scoundrel who uses stealth and trickery to overcome obstacles and enemies. You have then a sorcerer, a spellcaster who draws on inherent magic from a gift or a bloodline. You have a warlock, then a wielder of magic who's derived from a bargain with an extraplanar entity. Extraplanar refers to different planes, because D&D does revolve on a multiverse idea. There's the elemental planes, such as fire, water, earth, and air, each in their own separate plane. You have then the positive planes. I forget some of the more specific ones, but that's where all, like the good gods live, and it's basically heaven. You then have the lower planes, which is basically the 9 hells. Yes, there's 9, each ruled by a different devil. You have the abyss, the eternal abyss, sorry, which is filled with demons. Devils and demons are completely different. I will get into that on a monster manual type of video. And then you have the Fae. The Feywild is a different plane. It's a little confusing. It's like a mirror world, but never trust anything in the Feywild, basically. And then you have the Shadowfell, which is a dark, corrupted version of our world, where we have mountains in the exact same location in the Feywild. The mountains may be very jagged and dangerous, like. So that's where warlock, like, it's powerful beings from all these different planes where warlocks get their powers from. Wizards, they get their power from reading books and being very, very smart. Wizard, a scullery magic user capable of manipulating the structures of reality. That is so true. If anyone out there who has access to a PHP or who is thinking of playing D&D, if you want to feel like a god, play Wizard. Because you have really reality bending magic, such as like the wish spell, which is like a double-edged sword, because the DM, it's like, the traditional genie stuff, where you have to be careful what you wish for and how you phrase it, but still you can bend reality at your will. And then there's also, like, you create mini dimensions as well. So there's a level 20 wizard is basically, it's like, I am God, you fuck with me and I will throw fire at you. Or, now don't get me wrong though, wizards, you get up close to them, hit them, they're down and out. that's the only real trick with wizards is getting to them. So so if you're planning on playing a wizard, you might want to check with your party to see about party cohesion. That's it about then there's backgrounds. Backgrounds also determine your personality. There's like your ideal, hold on. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head to improve my memory. There's your ideal, your bond, your flaw, and then there is your personality trait. And your background determines what things you can have. Also, there is alignment as well. I'll probably do a separate video on alignment, because in Dungeons and Dragons there's 9 total different alignments, and they each have different general characteristics. Now, me and another DM, we debate a lot about some of the definitions of the thing. But see, that's because of the way they phrase some of the alignments, it can get into a very philosophical, I butchered the pronunciation of that. Oh god, I can't believe I did that. But anyway, it gets it basically comes down to what is evil. See, for me, when it comes to players playing lawful evil or neutral evil or chaotic evil, I see it as more as they're selfish and they will always look out for their own ends. Like, there's no question about it. They will always look out for number one uno. Whereas then the neutral, they're just like, don't really care. And then you have the good, which is always external. Like, they're always worried about, what's wrong with this person? What is wrong with that person? Whereas he says evil is straight up evil. It's comic book evil. So, like, unless you're playing an evil campaign where the players are trying to take over the world, ban players from playing any evil alignment. No, I personally like playing lawful evil, and the way I do it is, for example, my wizard, the sheet I showed you, he is looking to collect all magical knowledge. Not exactly an evil, not an evil goal, but that's what he wants. But the reason why he's lawful evil is because he will do whatever it takes. If he had to butcher or let a whole village die for him to go after a book that has a spell in it, he will do it. He will. And now, unless there's something magical to be, unless there's something to gain from saving the village or saving someone's life, he won't do it. So that's to me why my character's lawful evil, whereas the DM would be like, no, you're more neutral. So again, as I said at the beginning, DMs have different opinions from table to table, and no D&D game is going to be the same, because a lot, even when it comes to buying the adventure books, I've played through the starter adventure Lost Mine 10 times, and it was different every single time because each DM added their own personal touch to the book. So I'm struggling to add my own little personal touch to it, but I think I did well. I'm going to ask my players for feedback afterwards, but here's hoping. I'm going to try and get another good angle of the player handbook. Nope. There we go. That's much better. I'm so sorry about that. But yeah, this is the general appearance of the player handbook. Your name, your class, your race, and your alignment, and then here's your attribute bonuses, your equipment, your attacks, and all that stuff. Again, I'm so sorry. I'll probably will do some sort of video where where I'm using the. Again, I still find it weird that my phone doesn't allow me to switch cameras while it's being used. But okay, because it does that for Skype. It's like when I call someone on Skype, it allows me to switch back and forth. But okay. But I'll probably do another video of. I'll probably try and get my hands on a blank piece of paper with of the character sheet, and I'll try and fill it out, like a dummy character, to show you what I mean by filling it out. But yeah, that's about it for the starter stuff. The race, the amount of different races, the amount of different classes, a quick summary of each class. And then the different attributes. I could go into details on the backgrounds, but I think they may deserve their own video because it is a very lengthy section, and I'll probably go into the magics of each individual magic user class when I'm doing that class's thing. Again, I am sorry. I did plan on showing me. As I said, I'll even show you right now. Like, I actually had a digital player handbook open for me to fill out. See, it's right there in blank. It's blank and everything. I was going to make a dummy character and fill it out for you, but while I was explaining some stuff, but I'm sorry. That's one problem I have with the way I do my videos. Like, granted, I do like looking back sometimes at my Fallout one, my reaction to facing that blowfly. Like, I still laugh the fact I was like, oh my god, that was my reaction to that enemy. But yeah, like, it's just that I find too many videos, where it's just like, it's just a guy who rehearsed it and all that, like, and I want to do more natural videos. Like, I don't do editing and all that, so. But anyway, the video is getting into 45 minutes long. I'm going to end it here. Check back. I'll probably try and do another video before the weekend, because I'm going to be away from my computer for a week or so. So I would have access to, some of my reading material. Sorry, it's just that I do like having the PDFs open just so in case like I do forget something, I can quickly reference it. The first set of videos I'm gonna do is gonna be on the races, and the very first race is, let me just double check this, because again I will be trying to do a video on each one. They will vary in different lengths because, as I said, some races have some races have sub races. So I want to give like a decent thing if they do have one and talk about the different sub races. But the very first race we'll be talking about is dwarves. The anyone the Gimlis and the Oaken Shields. So yeah, we'll be doing a video on them. In the meantime, one advice I can give, if you're really looking into getting into the D&D mood, there, I'm pretty sure probably you all get this sense, but one of the films I would always recommend watching for this type of thing would be Lord of the Rings, because you have the different races, you have the quest, and if you think about it, you have some of the classes, like, again, as I said, Aragorn is quite clearly a ranger, Gimli is, I like to say, a barbarian, Legolas is a rogue, which me and my friend do get into debates with. I see him as rogue because he uses what's called long knives in the book. I know they look like short swords, but they're more long knives, and he does use a bow, and he's the very stealthy type of person. But I do see the merits of why you could call him a ranger, but my personal opinion, he's a rogue. Then you have Frodo and all that being rogues. I would like to say Sam is actually a cleric, just because of how good he is. Like, he is, like, throughout the entire series, like the 3 movies, he is the pinnacle of good, and then you have Gandalf the wizard. Granted, he does steal the freaking boss fight from the bar. I love that meme where where they basically just say Gandalf told the rest of the party to fuck off, and he fought the boss and kept all the loot and the XP for himself. So yeah, that's the end of my video. Happy gaming and happy life.